Does anyone remember back when Stan Lee used to opine in the back of Marvel issues? He called it Stan's Soapbox. I think I need something catchy like that, but the only thing I could think of was Jared's Jukebox, and I really have nothing to do with music, so that won't really work. This is Jared from Frost Comics, and so first we had Civil War with Iron Man, then we had Secret Wars with Dr. Doom, and now we have Culture War with Beanie Man. The Wikipedia article for Beanie Man says that his superpower is grifting? I'm kidding. But if you've been involved in any aspect of indie comics, the Iron Age, or Comicsgate for any length of time, you've probably heard the term culture war thrown around a lot, as in we are in a culture war. But is that true? Are we in the midst of some battle between two opposing forces, with some hitherto unforeseen prize awaiting an ignorant victor? Well, kind of, yeah. But it isn't what most people think. I've come across a couple of tweets, zeets? Posts? On Zitter, that call into question the nature of the culture war. One exceptionally honest fellow asked, perhaps rhetorically, "What is Iron Age culture?" And another gentleman stated confidently, "I don't need to fight a culture war." He even had a little graph in his post. A for effort. Thank you to both of you for helping inspire this video. What is Iron Age culture? I'll do you one better. What's comic book culture? One of the things that's kind of neat about live streaming is that you get to hang out backstage with the other people on the stream with you. You have a few minutes before the show, or however much free time you have after, to shoot the breeze and talk about how much you hate that guy who was late, despite the invitation clearly saying the show is scheduled for 9 o'clock, and I don't know why you have anything to do anyway. It's not like you have any free time. Anyway. Last month, I was chatting with someone backstage about crowdfunding and comic book culture, and all of this stuff, and the culture of comic books came up. He was talking about how an aspiring comic book creator could conceivably use any crowdfunding website to fund his projects, but where was the culture going to be? The culture is what really determined how much success a platform or project might expect to see, without any outside factors, of course, like marketing, appearances to show your work, that sort of stuff. Like if you go and slap down a campaign, will the culture find it and support it? My friend said that the bigger movers in comics help steer the direction of that culture, and where they went, you would see the culture generally follow. I think we can all think of big names who advocate for Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and somewhat more recently, Fund My Comic, and push elements of the culture towards those destinations. So what is comic book culture? Well, it's obvious, right? It's the fans. We are the culture. I have made no secret about how much I love Spider-Girl, so I am a small part of the Spider-Girl culture. My friend Animaine is a part of the Starfire and Storm culture. Go sub to his new channel, link in the description. If you look at the trailer and art for Community Service from S.A. Cooper, you can see that once upon a time, this man was a part of the Captain America culture. You can even see its influence in his work. Go check out Community Service, by the way. It's over halfway to its funding goal now, and it looks incredible. Edwin says, if there's no unification or even an idea that is stood behind, it's not a culture. My brother in Christ, the idea is being a fan. That is what we stand behind, unified as fans. To use my buddy Animaine as an example again, he and I are as alike as we are different. But one of the things that we both love is Common America. We are part of the Common America culture. That is how we are unified. That is the idea we stand behind, being fans of Common America. That's all it takes. So the Iron Age absolutely has a culture, one of alternative media support. Now, yes, I do think the Iron Age is trying to find its own creative leaders, the people who can turn out consistent, high-value products while trying to grow its fans and that culture. But it's absolutely there, and it's absolutely growing. There doesn't need to be a principled stance behind finding alternative media to support. So we know that Earwig is just being disingenuous at worst or pedantic at best, but now that we've established an understanding of culture, what do we do with the idea of a culture war? That's where Mark, AGP, comes in. Mark has repeatedly stated that he doesn't need to fight in a culture war, and he doesn't need to be part of the Iron Age to be successful. To that I say, good for you, Mark. Finding success is hard, so if you found it entirely on your own, congrats, man. However, I hate to break it to you, but you're still part of a culture war, whether you want to be or not. If the culture is fans, or in a broader context, citizens, then anything you care about or are a part of makes you a small part of the culture. Fandoms have specific cultures around them, be they Warhammer 40k, My Little Pony, the MCU, whatever. And each of those fandoms makes up a broader nerd culture, or consumer culture, or internet culture. The culture around Dark Souls and From Software games, for instance, can be summarized in 2 words. Get good. Mark, you said that you stopped fighting the culture war, but fighting a culture war isn't about having slap fights on Twitter, X, whatever. Internet fights are about chasing dopamine hits or venting anger on people foolish enough to have contrary opinions. How dare they? Actually, fighting a culture war is about influencing the culture. And in our own ways, we each do that. If you make a comic, buy a comic, don't buy a comic, talk about a comic, review a comic, whatever you do, you're participating in the culture. And the larger behavior of everyone doing this determines and defines that culture. One of the most powerful things you can do in a consumer culture, for instance, is not buy a product if it's bad. Trust me, nothing sends a message to someone selling a product quite as powerfully as not buying the product. The larger your platform, the louder your voice in the culture. The more people agree with you, the more influential that part of a culture is. You get the idea. In my last video, I read a comment I left Royce of A Drink with Crazy, where I talked about how creators and YouTubers clash over their roles in this cultural conflict we're participating in. Royce gets it. You see, we're all trying to figure out the best way to change the broader culture, win the war, swing the pendulum back. The Iron Age has a culture, but when the culture is find alternatives, there are going to be some growing pains while we figure out where to look or how we do that, especially when the mainstream culture is about as straightforward as you can get. We are the culture. So let's shape it in the best way that we can. Now, go be great.